and get a little bit of extra gold, extra money for your team. But they're just deciding to skip through Rumble completely, which I'm very surprised about. I mean, both of these teams, Rumble, again, as I mentioned, probably one of the biggest picks and one of the strongest picks right now in the current meta. Gwen being picked is no surprise, but Rumble going through the first phase of draft is very surprising for me.
Very surprising, but I mean, we're looking over to the side of Mango Esports, and this is very similar to the draft they played in game 2, right? Like, they have the Nautilus, they have the Yone, they have the Ezreal, so I feel like they're just going for that game-winning strategy that they had against SB3 yesterday, but here, I mean, we got a Gwen, we got a Volibear, we got a Wukong, right? Like, these are very sort of obviously more towards the top side of the map. Where are they going to be going? Like, obviously, Wukong, we know, can go top jungle. Volibear, top jungle. Gwen, top jungle. So it's definitely throwing me off here. I mean, is it potential Gwen into the mid lane here, potentially?
Yeah, I think this is kind of the style that you normally see with kind of these bruisers and these AP bruisers being played in the mid lane and also the top lane, because you normally see the dual lane always going into the mid lane to get that mid lane priority early on and to try and get vision around the enemy jungle. In terms of who's going to be the jungler, if I was to predict, it's probably Wukong. I definitely don't think it's Gwen, because Gwen's just been nerfed way too many times in jungle and her clear speed is way too slow. Volibear, I think, just has a great time in 1v1 duels early on, and just the power that you have in the early game is very powerful. So I would predict that it's Wukong in the jungle, but it could be out of Wukong or Volibear, to be fair. But Zyra Khan, the lovers duo in that duo lane, is going to be very hard to deal with for the side of Mango.
Yeah, I mean, Rakan was one of the picks we didn't see at all yesterday. And I mean, back to yesteryear, Rakan was one of the kind of like top support picks, especially on players like Hestes as well and stuff like that. They love this pick, obviously, with the ultimate quickness. Is going to be great kind of like crowd control into these team fights. But the Swain here, oh, okay. It's potentially going to be obviously into the mid lane here for the side of Mango Esports, going on to timing potentially.
I mean, this is a pick that I am very, very excited about. This is one of the picks that actually came through from China this morning. So I wonder if they've like kind of watched some of the China, maybe Timing was watching some of the Chinese games this morning. Swain was one of the picks that came through as kind of a shining light. The great pick, one reason and the great pickup for Swain is he's great against a lot of melee champions. And what do, you know, the side of Vapo have at the moment? A lot of melee champions. The meta is all about these melee champions that are very close range, that want to try and get as close as possible. And Swain with his ultimate is just going to do huge amounts of AoE damage. If you're able to catch someone with your third ability, you have that huge AoE damage with your ultimate, it can be very difficult to escape it. And then it's very difficult to then get onto the back line to say someone like an Ezreal and try and get that huge advantage. So great pickup, I think, for the Swain. You know, I think it's a pick that honestly should be picked more often because it's so good with this competitive meta. Might not be as good in solo queue, but when you're against so many melee champions in competitive, you just get so much value from the champion.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, looking at Mango's draft, we saw, I think for Obsesh yesterday, he played a lot of Xin Zhao. His other jungler, I wasn't quite too sure on which he picked, but obviously the Shyvana here is, I mean, has she recently been buffed in terms of obviously how her passive works or anything like that? Because I mean, the Shyvana into the jungle, obviously it is great, obviously backline dive onto the likes of the Zyra, and obviously can be quite sort of tanky within this pick still. So interesting to see why they go for the Shyvana. Is there any kind of like real reason beyond that one?
I don't think so, to be fair. I think it's kind of, it's a bit of a sleeper pick, to be fair. I don't think there's really much to the pick. You know, you're kind of just farming and just hoping that you can scale and try and do something in the late game. The problem with Shyvana is that she just takes way too long to get online, you know, with, as you mentioned, you know, her passive hasn't been changed actually at all for quite some time. She hasn't been buffed or changed that much in recent times. So she still has that very slow kind of approach to the early game. She just wants to AFK farm as much as possible. She wants to try and get as many objectives and try and get the stacks towards her passive. If she can get stacks towards her passive, get up to 400 stacks, get all of her abilities upgraded, then she can actually become a champion. But before then, she just becomes very weak. And this kind of problem, I think, with Mango's draft is they have a lot of late game. Ezreal needs to scale, get at least 3 or 4 items. Swain at least needs to get 3 or 4 items as well and get a few levels under his belt. Shyvana needs the stacks towards her passive. So the early game is where I worry, for Mango. You know, where the early game game on the other side. You have Volibear for the early game, who's very aggressive, very powerful.
Yep.
Wukong as well. Actually, interesting enough, it's going to be Volibear in the jungle, but still, Wukong has a great time in the top lane, and also the Zyra Khan can also be very aggressive as well. So if Mango survive this early game, and if they can get a few stacks towards the Swain and get a few items onto the Ezreal, I think that they have a chance to outscale and outperform in team fights.
Potentially, right? I mean, we're seeing a little bit back to normality here with obviously Wukong up into the top side of the map. Obviously, his Keystone Ruin being the Grasp of the Undying is definitely better than what we were seeing yesterday with obviously the first strike into the jungle Wukong that we saw yesterday with one of the teams. I believe it was EXS that picked that one up, but definitely more welcomed feature here. I mean, how it pairs up against the Swain up into the top side of the map is going to be yet to be seen. Obviously, Swain Level 1 is probably going to be the hardest, but in terms of range, is definitely going to kind of outrange the Wukong here.
Actually, it's actually kind of nice that you can go for the Swain against the Wukong matchup, because it actually kind of stops some of that early game aggression that Wukong can have. As you can see, Timing already having a great time in this top side, running the Electrocute as well, the really aggressive rune that you don't really see too much on that Swain. Normally you go for something with Phase Rush for the extra movement speed to help you get into range with your ultimate later on, but Electrocute is more about the early game, trying to poke down, trying to be super aggressive, which against this matchup like a Wukong, as I've said, Wukong is very strong in the early game. You can actually go toe to toe with that Wukong in the early phases and try and potentially try and get a first blood, which he was literally able to get with that Ignite.
Yeah, very aggressive already starting with these two teams, Vapo and Mango Esports going head-to-head here. Obviously, Kalos is able to kind of chunk a lot of the damage into this early part of the game. So far, he's just trying to maybe try and separate the Zyra and the Rakan from each other. Susanoo looking pretty low in terms of health right now. I think it's just down to Deadly managing to get quite a few of those trick shots just on top of the Rakan for now.
Exactly that. You're just seeing both the mid lanes just pushing out for now. No real trades and no real exchanges happening. Both of them just trying to get mid lane priority. You saw that straight away the Nautilus and the Ezreal got that mid lane priority, with Nautilus being so powerful with wave clearing early on. Just help the Shyvana get that early Scuttle Crab, and then she can just clear through the rest of her jungle. Exactly what she's done at the moment. She's gone back to base, and now they're trying to actually stop Queenie from taking this bot lane Scuttle, but the smite will come through as well. So both junglers level 5. Not really anything too crazy happening in this early game. Nothing really too happens unless you get a solo kill or 2v2 kill in the laning phase. Most of the time these junglers just farm up until they try and get their first items, or even before the first objective spawns. So you're seeing now the Shyvana going back to her jungle, farming up. Volibear also going back to his jungle, farming up as well. And this helps Shyvana more than Volibear. You know, the Shyvana will just keep scaling, keep getting stacks from the passive, and hopefully get into a spot of the game where she can become useful.
Okay, bit of a 3v1 dive on top of Carlos here. We do see a big invade. Obviously, big hold from the Volibear as well. First blood is actually going to go up to the Lilo. Is Patterson going to be able to get the knock up here as well as do the damage? Not quite. He has to get out of there. Obviously, Shyvana obsessed, trying to lurk around. I mean, I feel like if Kalos was there and this kind of rotation was executed a little bit faster, maybe then Obsessed would have been on top of that.
And both exchange happening in the top side as well. We just missed the Swain ultimate coming on through. Not going to be able to get the kill so far, but actually it was a really nice play by Susanoo on this Rakan, and also Queenie just standing out of vision, forcing the Nautilus to step forward with the aggressive play there from Lilo. Over aggressive a little bit from that Nautilus, and then with the mobility that the Volibear and also the Rakan have, you can easily just get that extra trade-off. It's Nautilus playing very aggressive though, trying to rotate around the map, trying to make plays. His first play didn't work out too well, but this time his second play forces out the flash from that Wukong.
Yeah, I mean, historically within the Rift battles as well, we've been seeing obviously first bloods majoritively in either the mid lane over to top side. So seeing such a big, obviously, dive down to the bot side and then it go over to Gwen. I mean, in terms of itemization, Gwen we know needs like at least a few of those AP items to come online. So that early gold going over to the Gwen here is probably not quite so good for Mango Esports. They are only behind about like 400 gold, so it's not the kind of end of the world just yet, but they need to do something right. Most likely, I feel like their focus is going to be on these dragons. It obviously pays to Shyvana's passive as well.
I don't think they need to really do too much, to be fair. I think if they just carry on farming as they do, as I mentioned, I think they just outscale completely Their composition just outscales, you know, Ezreal outscales the Xayah, mid lane, Swain outscales the Gwen, the jungle. Shyvana could be a lot more useful in these late game team fights. And even Yone, once he has a few items, he can go for this really strong outplay. But looks like the Nautilus is going to get caught again. The charm gone through from the Rakan as well. And that's another kill over to the side of Vapo. They're trying to take a trade kill back, but Deadly, unfortunately, can't do enough damage. Oh, he gets a snipe on through with the Mystic shot. Really big pickup here onto the jungle. And now the map is wide open here for Mango to decide what objective they want to go for.
Yeah, I mean, that was like kind of like a key pickoff in that moment in time, right? Taking the jungler away from the side of Vapo is pretty huge, but once again, another death down to the bot side of the map as well. Patterson is going to be out of the rankings for a few moments, but we can see a contention here. Wukong tries to go in with the old ultimate here to try and steal the enchanted ensemble, but is it going to be quite enough? Susanoo in there, but it is going to be the takedown of the clone of the Wukong. Has to be careful though, looking pretty low. Is Wukong coming in with the help? It's going to be Queenie. He's not going to be able to chunk a lot of the damage. It is going to be Swain picking up the kill over to the Monkey for now. Timing looking pretty low. He's trying to just take out of the team fight, but he's not going to be able to get out. It is Rakan going down as well. A lot of trading going on. You can see the potential of this Swain. Woo!
Yeah, they're all dead now. I mean, that's a really, really bad exchange here for Vapo. Mango getting a huge advantage in this game now. Queenie coming out of base, running straight towards that Rift Herald, in my opinion, is a huge misplay. I think you just take the trade, you take the loss of the Rift Herald. You don't need to force a team fight there. Instead, you can try and, you know, just take the dragon instead. Take that away and just try and play towards the Dragon Soul. But now you're just taking the objectives away. You're taking everything away really on the side of Mango. You got the mid lane tower, you got the Rift Herald, you got the dragon as well. Queenie dies 2 times. The survivability, as I mentioned, that front line for Swain, it's so difficult to break through, and Deadly played that fight so well, landing mystic shot after mystic shot. And you can see now multiple gold leads across the map, and the Shyvana just got so many stacks towards her passive.
Yeah, multiple gold leads, but like you were saying there, Stu, the fact that they're able to get obviously both the neutral objectives and also convert that into the T1 into the mid lane is already opening up here for a early game victory for Mango Esports for now. I mean, they were only, what, a couple of 100 gold ahead about maybe a few moments ago, but when all that decided to pop off, that's when it's really started to shine here for them. They definitely got the best foot forward now after that great team fight into the top side, and then just opening up the rest of the map for the side of Mango.
And we've seen here what else can happen on the rest of this map. Gwen using the ultimate into the top side, and to the bot side, I should say, but nothing really too happening in terms of the aggression. No tower dive happening. Patterson on this Yone again, a pick that he was very comfortable on, it seems like yesterday. You know, was trying to make some huge plays and was able to make a huge play in the last team fight of yesterday's series. So he's looking to try and scale and do the same thing again. This timing, just trying to deal a little bit of extra damage to this Wukong, unfortunately focusing onto the clone. But it looks like another tower is going to go down here for Vapo in this top side. So they've already lost 2 towers. They've already lost a few objectives. They're only 2,000 gold behind, so it's not the worst case scenario, but it's definitely not looking good in terms of momentum right now.
Not looking good in terms of momentum. I mean, like you said there, I think it's overall a good trade for Swain. He didn't die. He was able to get the T1, and he's now got the minion wave, obviously crashing into T2 territory as well. But Vapo, they definitely need to try and get some pickoffs here. Maybe even just get like a good team fight and then push one of the side of Mango Esports turrets as well. Like, they definitely need to start to open up the side of the red team. But if we look at kind of like the goal difference between lanes, it's not quite much between actually, no, sorry, because I was looking at the Swain and the Yone and the Wukong being in lane together, but it's not. Obviously, Patterson's been laned against the Gwen all this time. So between Swain and Wukong, there is like a sizable amount.
Kind of saying the opposite though, right? I mean, Gwen has a big lead against the Yone, so it's kind of like a trade-off really, to be fair. Like, you know, Patterson hasn't really been having the best time, as you mentioned before. We missed it, but Yone did get solo killed by that Gwen early on when they were towards the Rift Herald fight. As I mentioned, I think for Mango, they're totally okay with the game state at the moment. They were able to get a gold lead. Mango just need to carry on scaling, carry on farming up, get a few items onto their carriage. You can see Rod of Ages, 2 items already completed on this Swain anti-shield item as well. It's going to help against all the shielding that's going to come through from the Volley Bear, from the Rakan, and also the Gargle Stone Plates upgrades as well. So there's a lot of power and a lot of advantages that I think Mango have at the moment in this game, and their scaling is just going to get even stronger as the game goes on.
Yeah, early optimization just to try and like turn the tide to the team fight here. But again, we do see a early volley bear kind of trying to commit to the team fight here. Obsessed looking pretty low into the backside of the map there, but it is going to be Susanoo that gets taken down thanks to Swain as well as Deadly. Deadly is going to be able to put a lot of damage onto the side of Vapo for now and gets the kill onto the Wukong as well as the volley bear. So that is overall a 3-0 trade for Mango once more, as they have the minion waves in the mid coming in, as they have them up into the top side of the map as well. The only kind of like way they're keeping the balance here for, obviously, if you were to look at a victory here for Vapo, is the fact that they haven't lost the bot side right now. But I think that's just down to Low and Patterson just going head-to-head non-stop.
They're focusing a lot onto this top side. They weren't actually able to exchange that into any objectives. They could have carried on pushing the top side, but I think they were just too low on HP and they couldn't transition that into any more towers. But again, you're seeing the power of the likes of the Swain and the Shyvana in that front line. They can't really do too much to try and take down, you know, they just don't have enough damage at the moment. You know, with the Volley Bear, the Wukong, and the Xayah, there's not enough damage. Gwen really needs to join these team fights. Gwen's the champion that can shred through all of this magic resist and all of this armor and HP on the side of Mango. But at the moment, Gwen is, as you mentioned, kind of left distraction on the side lane with Patterson. So right now, Gwen not being in this team fights is actually helping Mango winning these early game fights. Now they take another dragon. So that's more stacks over to Shyvana, and that's 2 dragons out of the 3 needed for the Dragon Soul.
Yeah, it's kind of like maybe a little bit of the fault of Vapo, but at the same time, maybe there is going to be a little bit of a method to the madness. Like maybe once the T1 down to the bot side of the map actually opens up, and then that's when we can kind of see the rotations here for Lilo to come through and help the team fights. We can kind of see here as well that she is getting those 3 items online as well. Obviously, she's got the Oblivion, which is the 2nd tier item here, obviously, and then Nash's Tooth as well, attack speed and AP damage come through also. So we kind of see slowly but surely Lilo can be activated. So maybe it's going to be the latter part of this game where we start to see Vapo shine thanks to Lilo.
We're seeing here maybe a little bit of aggression again onto the Swain, but again, the Swain is going to be healing so much. They're trying to do as much damage onto the Swain. The Gargoyle Stone Plate comes in finally. As I mentioned, Gwen joins the team fights and Gwen takes a kill. They're going to try and keep on playing aggressive though. This is a 4 versus 5, so they do need to be very careful, but Deadly is completely untouched right now on this Ezreal. He is down to half HP though. That's a 2-for-0 trade right now for Vapo. So a big team fight win for them to try and stabilize this game a little bit. But as I mentioned, as soon as this Gwen joins the team fights, and if they can get the picks that they've been looking for, Gwen can do so much damage to these tanks and make a huge difference.
Yeah, definitely shredded through timing as well as Kolos there. Like they definitely didn't have like a leg to left to stand on, but maybe that's what they're going to be doing here for the rest of the game, right? Vapo knows that, hey, we can't kind of keep entertaining Patterson down to the bot side of the map. If he does take out T1, then yeah, it's going to be a little bit more gold over to the side of Mango Esports, but we really need, obviously, Lilo into these team fights because we've seen the potential. We know how we can come out on top of these team fights, and right now, Vapo, we're not in any kind of situation to lose any more neutral objectives, right? I mean, if they lose like a Baron Nashor here, it's going to be hard for them to come back.
Yeah, exactly that. I think we have to try and figure out what Mango want to do when it comes to these objectives. I think, again, they can just kind of wait until the next dragon does spawn, which should be hopefully in a few minutes time. Nautilus has to use the flash to get away, but I think he'll be completely fine and completely safe with that one. Just making sure that he doesn't get picked off like it's been happening a few times this game with the Nautilus being picked off. But for now, they are just going to maybe look towards this Baron. I don't think they're going to start it just yet. They're just trying to play the distraction game for now. Again, trying to find these picks. Great ulti there by the Xayah. Stops the Yone from jumping in. There are a few ultimates down now. Queenie jumps in 1 versus 5. Not really too sure what Queenie's doing there. It's going to go down to the Swain in the end. Another kill onto the Wukong as well. Queenie jumping a little bit too far there, all by himself. Bit of miscommunication there from Vapo, and that means that Mango can turn towards this Baron.
Yeah, I mean, in that team fight overall, the one key thing you didn't want to lose was the Queen, right? So Queenie shouldn't have gone down there. He dived in, kind of overcommitted a little bit, maybe hoping a lot of the damage was going to come from to the side of Vapo. Obviously, Xayah and the Gwen is going to be kind of like their biggest damage output at this point, but They're going to try and take some little bit of victories here. Obviously going in with a 2v3 for now is going to be the side of Vapo, taking the T1 down to the bot side of the map as well. They're able to take down Patterson again for the second time in this game, but they got to make sure they keep in check of that top side of the map for the side of Vapo as well, right? I mean, that's their inhibitor. It's taking a lot of beating here. That's a chunky minion wave coming through.
Yeah, Swain decided to go back to base there. Didn't want to risk himself getting caught out as well. Unfortunately, Patterson getting caught out on the other side of the map. Tried to defend that tier 1 tower, but honestly, didn't really need to defend it in the end. I think they would happily take the trade of the Baron Asher for one tier 1 tower in the bottom side of the map. But Obsessed at the moment, nearly at 3 items now for this Shyvana. Again, Deadly is scaling. Patterson slowly getting towards 3 items. Death cap now completed for that Swain. So we've been saying how strong this Swain has been throughout this game, and he's just going to get even stronger as well. Timing has made such a huge difference, really, I think, for Mango in both yesterday's series and even this series alone. Just from game number 1, his Swain pick has been absolutely vital in this game so far. But it's not over just yet. The next dragon is spawning, and it is going to be the Dragon Soul opportunity here for Mango. They do have Baron buff at the same time, so it looks like the whole of Mango are kind of playing distraction at the moment. They're going to push the mid lane, and they're going to let Shyvana solo out the the dragon by herself, so they can guarantee that Dragon Soul.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you've got such an advantage, you would definitely play it in this kind of strategy, right? Like, just push on all 3 lanes, keep them distracted. I mean, we know Vapo. Vapo aren't going to be stupid. They're not going to be like, oh, yeah, Shyvana's not definitely taking that Ocean Dragon. So she get, I mean, the Ice Dragon to get the Ocean Dragon Soul there. So it's just the unfortunate situation that Vapo's in right now. Very aggressive. The pull back in. Oh, my goodness. The takedowns onto the Wukong, onto the Rakan as well. This is definitely not where Vapo want to be, right? That is so much aggression. Volley Bear straight into the backline. Queenie looking a little bit worse for wear, as well as Patterson. He's able to get out as both of them are, but not without their fair few blows and scratches right now. Lilo as well, surviving the Ignite, gets back into the base, but lose the high ground turret into the mid and into the top side.
Inhibitors going down here in the top of mids. Nothing really more that they can do out of it, though. Again, the Swain just doing so much burst damage in the end. So many times they're just making, you know, plays after plays. Again, this time it was the Swain, the pullback again. Every single time they're finding the opportunity with the pullback, they're doing a crazy amount of damage, and it's becoming very, very difficult for really anyone on the side of Vapo to do any sort of damage in these fights. These frontline 2 of this, the Shyvana and the Swain, and even the Nautilus as well, is just tanking so much damage, and it's so difficult for them to deal with. And now they're going to look to try and invade even more of the jungle camps, take more of the jungles away. But Volibear might need to be a little bit careful. The Nautilus might need to be a little bit careful here, but it's just going to use the ultimate and the shield to escape.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody onto the side of Mango Esports is going to be phase checking, you kind of be wanting to put in Kolos there. But like you said, he needs to be careful, because we're getting to that point of the game where they are definitely going to start to hurt. Like, even if you kind of overextend just a little bit, they are just going to kind of punish Kolos. And then when it comes into the next team fight, he's not going to be as preppy as he should be, being that front line that we've been seeing time and time again from Mango Esports. But hey, Elder Dragon and the Baron Asher are up right now.
Exactly that, and you're seeing that the objectives don't really want to get started. They don't want to start the 50-50 flip. That is the Wukong clone. That's not the real one. And you're seeing that there are a few times that Mango here are looking to try and step forward a little bit, try and play a little bit aggressive, try and look for picks. But look at Patterson in the bottom side. You're already seeing that top wave crash into the enemy's Nexus. They're not going to be able to do anything for now. Wukong is actually going to defend the top side, and now it's going to become a 4 versus 5. But they already, again, don't want to try and flip this. Queenie has to use the ultimate defensively again to try and trap it. But look at the Swain, the damage again from timing. Just one-shots the Rakan. There's nothing that he could do about it. Timing on this Swain has been absolutely perfect, and now that 4 versus 5 is going to come on through handy. Wukong is not be able to defend that top side as well. Now they're just going to try and carry on this team fight. Wukong again taken so low on health. The Xayah dies as well. Everyone is just dead on the side of Vapo, and everyone lives for Mango, and that means they're going to run straight towards the Nexus and end this game number 1.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of baited and gestured around that Elder Dragon just to be like, hey guys, come and try and take it from us. We're going to have a big team fight here. And then just the fact that they had the enhanced minions into obviously top and mid side of the map just meant that, like, we saw towards the end of that team fight, like, Wukong didn't know his like head from his bottom. Like he was like, do I go into the team fight to go and help them? Do I kind of try and fend the Nexus? And I think he took a little bit too long, obviously making that decision. And then ultimately, when he went into the team fight, it was already like their front line was chunked thanks to the Swain there. But honestly, timings picks over these past 2 days have been the difference maker within the side of Mango Esports.
Yeah, I mean, the Vladimir yesterday, the Swain today as well, you know, even just from this game number one, I mean, he has performed to a top level. He's been one of my standout players, I think, from the last few days right now. I think the Swain pick, again, very strong in this current meta that we're seeing at the moment with Wild Rift Esports, with this competitive play, with just so many bruisers and so many melee champions. You're seeing the Volibear trying to jump in, the Rakan trying to jump in, Wukong trying to jump in. The problem is you're jumping onto a Swain that's just taking all of your damage. You know, we're seeing some of the replays and the highlights here as well. The Swain here in the front line with that Nautilus as well is just tanking so much of the damage, and Swain is just never dying. And that means that a player like Deadly, who we know is very mechanically skilled on this Ezreal, can be completely untouched. I don't even know if Deadly died once this entire game, because he was just untouched every single team fight, dealing a crazy amount of damage, and over again just doing incredible work here on this Ezreal. And as a team, again, playing around these objectives perfectly, playing around, you know, their win conditions, and, you know, playing this first game pretty flawlessly.
Absolutely. I mean, they definitely had obviously that one little like slip up where obviously they did fall down, and we did see that Vapo tried to get a little bit of a leeway there, but still wasn't able to take any of their turrets. But it's just team fights like this where they're just all clunked together, and when you've got like such AoE massive damage coming from obviously not only Shyvana in dragon form, but then the Swain that we keep mentioning, and then not only that, you've then got Deadly into the backline just hitting you with the mystic shots, with the true shot barrage as well. They just couldn't quite catch their breath.
No, exactly that. And you're seeing the damage from the Swain in the end here as well. Just absolutely disgusting. You know, if he can land one of his pulls, it's so incredibly powerful. And even with this build as well, sometimes it's kind of a question of how you want to build this Swain. Do you want to build the Swain more of a bruiser with maybe items like Rylai's and Riftmaker and play more towards these longer team fights and these extended trades? Or do you just want to play for full burst, which is exactly what Timing wanted to do this game? He just wanted to go for as much burst damage as possible. As we see the last team fight again, look, landing that root onto that Wukong, and he just gets one shot. Like, there's just nothing you could do. As soon as Swain lands that skill, he pulls you back, he hits you with all the burst damage with the electrocute, and there's just nothing you can do. Again, playing the Mango, I mentioned this yesterday as well, but around the objectives and around the dragons and the Rift Heralds, they just know exactly what they're doing around these team fights. They're not risking that 50-50 smite fight. They're not risking potentially losing the game off of one objectives. They force the enemy team towards them. They force them to try and get vision. And when they have an opportunity, they create the pick potential. They create the advantage, and they go for the kills. But as I mentioned, Deadly didn't die a single time this game as well as Obsess on that Shyvana.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's even more like pretty impressive from Obsess as well, right? The fact that like their front line just like didn't die once, but we have to talk about obviously the Shyvana, which we said obviously into the draft. The way you counter the Shyvana is if you're kind of doing those early game invades and kind of contesting her jungle. But none of that was happening from Vapo, right? So they clearly just gave Mango Esports the green light to be like, all right, guys, you're not going to contest the Shyvana. Bet we'll get the passives, we'll get the stacks, and then we'll see what you can do with these team fights. And the only time we ever saw any kind of good team fight come from Vapo was when the Gwen came in, right? Like when Lilo finally broke his chains out of that bot side of the map and came into the team fight. That's where we saw the rundown of Kolos as well as the Swain for the only time. And then after that point, it was kind of the scaling kind of got out of hand for the side of Mango Esports because so many of the team fights were going in their favor.
I mean, I think at that point, I think Vapo just needs to completely switch their, switch their idea and switch